Hey, welcome back. It's Cavallo from datingfire.com. Welcome back to the Dating Advice Guru Dating and Relationship video podcast. Today, we're talking about something pretty cool. Well, a little different anyways. Dating a man with kids. Is this something you've ever considered or worried about or wondered? Well, you know what? There are some things you got to know about first. Because dating a man with kids is one of the most complicated things to deal with in a relationship. But it can also be one of the most gratifying and amazing accomplishments. So join me. Let's talk about it. And let's make this whole thing a lot easier. If you want to get more great stuff like this, take a chance, sign up, just subscribe. It won't hurt you, I promise. Make sure you click the like button too, and of course, turn on notifications so you know when the next video comes out. Now, there's a lot to be interested in, to be honest. If you don't have kids of your own, you might like the idea of taking on the nurturing maternal role, even if it's not for your own children. Maybe you've got a great guy on the hook and you know that this is something you could do. Knowing that he's made this kind of commitment himself is also actually a pretty big plus, right? I mean, if the guy has been able to commit himself to having kids, well, that shows him capable of being devoted to family, and you know you need that kind of devotion. But is dating a man with a child worth it? A lot of this is going to depend on whether or not you're used to having kids around. If you have your own kids, you'll probably already know the answer to this one, right? If you don't have kids of your own, you're going to have to make some adjustments. It's a big deal to take on kids that are not your own. There's no way anybody can tell you whether or not it's worth it. But the best they can tell you is to be aware of what's going on in this kind of relationship. That's what I'm telling you about. Let's give some pros and cons of dating a man with kids. Here are some of the pros. The pros are, if he's looking for a relationship, he's not going to waste any time or energy, okay? He's going to have an open heart if he's open to loving his own children. That's got to have opened him up somehow. He's not going to be in a great hurry to get married or rush the romance, which can be a good thing too. He's going to understand commitment on a very deep level, right? Now the cons, well, his life is going to be chaotic and you're going to have to be really flexible. You're going to have to figure out your place along the way and fit in with this family unit in a way that helps the kids first, him second, and sometimes you last. You got to deal with his ex, so hopefully they're on good terms. You're going to have to work around a time schedule and dating schedule that won't be carefree. It can be actually pretty hectic. Now there might be many more that you'll figure out on your own given your own situation. So here are some of the few of the reasons why you would want to immediately walk away from a relationship with a man with kids. You don't want kids. If you don't want kids, this is an immediate deal breaker and you should walk away right now. If you're just straddling the line like, well, maybe I could just kind of be there for it. No. If you don't want kids, get the hell out. You have no business being there. It would just be the worst thing for him and for the family. You're not ready to share the parenting with another woman. That's one of the things you got to remember is you're going to be sharing being the mom with his ex. You're either too young for kids or too old for more kids. Basically, you don't want kids yet is what I'm saying there. He's not upfront and honest about his parental situation and his role. If he's not living up to his role as dad, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to be a surrogate mom. If he doesn't seem to be able to balance his dad role with making you happy and being a good man for you, it's another reason you don't want to jump in. If you want biological children of your own, in addition to the kids he has, he's got to be on board with that, okay? You may even talk about that. A lot of families start out this way, where it starts out as a step parent, then you have kids of your own. Now, this might sound strange, but you should absolutely make sure that he hasn't had a vasectomy. A lot of guys get them when they're done with the baby making, but he didn't realize that the marriage wouldn't last. And I think that most of those reasons I just gave, they totally make sense to you if you thought about them. Now, is there baggage with a relationship like this? Well, of course, there's complications. I mean, I've been a man dating single moms in the past, and I'll tell you, I completely relate to the complication of this kind of situation. And you also got to realize there's plenty of people out there that are ready and willing to give you advice. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, like really bad. And the bad advice could easily wreck this relationship. So you do need to know the truth. For example, one of the most commonly emotionally charged objections you're going to hear goes like this: you don't want to raise another person's kids. Well, this particular objection depends on your perspective. If you're a woman who either couldn't have children for some reason or you wanted to add more children to your family, you might adopt a child. Now, technically, this would be raising another person's kids, right? If you adopted, that would be good, especially if there was a child from an underprivileged part of the world, right? But not raising another person's kids is still not a good reason to avoid dating a man with kids. Of course, the title stepmom isn't one you may have set out to acquire. We all have our fairy tale versions of what we see our ideal relationship and marriage being. And when you grow up and become an adult, a real adult, you understand that those ideas are not always the way things work out. In fact, they almost never do. And this also doesn't mean that the relationship you wind up with is any less valid or even magical. It's up to you to make the meaning for yourself and embrace your own path. So let's dig into some of the tips you're going to need to know if you're going to date a guy with kids, okay? Tip number 1, you have to have good self-confidence. If you're going to date a man with kids, you have to understand that at some point you're not going to be his priority. This would happen even in a traditional relationship, okay? You will be a priority, but maybe not always the number 1 priority. And as long as his kids are your priority, you'll always be on the same page. You can't let this feeling of being slighted diminish the strength of the relationship. Don't let that pettiness creep in. And if I'm being completely truthful here, and I always am when it comes to this kind of relationship advice, a man can feel pushed aside in a traditional relationship for the kids too. I'll confess that I had the exact same concerns as a young man, that my wife would lose interest in me because she has kids now. I knew that children are a huge priority for women, and this can sometimes be an excuse to shift your focus over when you've got struggles in the relationship. And tip number 2 is, if you thought it was hard meeting the parents, here's the situation. His children are now probably part-time with him. And while it's probably more difficult on their mom, they now have to share him with you. And the kids have to deal with a broken family. Look, this ain't going to be easy, but it can be done. As long as you keep their situation, the kid's situation, in your thoughts and heart, you'll be able to navigate the difficulties with them a lot better. Now, it's those women that become adversaries and try to force their way into his life that are going to find themselves struggling quite a bit. Meeting his actual parents, that'll seem like a walk in the park. Of course, depending on what his parents thought of his ex and how that turned out. Tip number 3, holiday hell. Yep, here's another little bit of reality for you. When it comes to certain celebrations, holidays, special events, you got to keep in mind that she will be a part of them. Yes, the other mom will inevitably be at those events, and you may have to even be there with her family, depending on the nature of the get-together. I did tell you up front, this is going to be a little complicated, didn't I? You got to be prepared to interact with some of the people from his old life. It may not be comfortable, may not be fun, but you have to accept it as part of the deal. Tip number 6, yes, got to skip forward because I got a lot to cover in a short video. Tip number 6 is, when it comes to her, let him handle it. There are some tricky boundaries in a relationship like this. You're going to have to be navigating some uncharted waters here for sure. When it comes to issues between him and his ex-girlfriend or his ex-wife or whoever the children's mom is, you're going to have to step back and let that be. It's tempting to get involved and manage him in those situations and tell him what to do, but you have to sit back and provide feedback when he asks for it, okay? You don't want to appear to be interfering or manipulating. That's going to make it infinitely more difficult on you, him, and the kids. Tip number 7, this is a big one. Watch out for comparisons. You might be tempted to compare your situation with another woman in a similar situation, but the truth of the matter is, both of your situations are going to be very different. Similar in some ways, but different most of the time. Keep in mind that as you deal with the weirdness, you're going to have that coming up a lot, all right? What I'm referring to is, of course, comparing someone else's more ideal or easier situation to your own, right? Each side is going to have difficulties. You don't see all the tough stuff going on in that person's relationship. Comparison only makes us more unhappy. This is a universal rule, and I don't care if it's dealing with kids that you're going to be inheriting from another relationship or what. Comparing your situation to other people will almost always make you unhappy because you'll always find somebody doing better and you'll always find somebody doing a little worse. If you spend any time on Facebook, you know what I mean about this one. Tip number 8, don't forget about the money. Yep, one of the more uncomfortable truths is that if he's paying any amount of child support or marital support to his ex, it's going to put him in a difficult situation. 5 out of 6 custodial parents are women, meaning that the man was most likely not the primary caretaker for the kids, which means he's probably being held accountable for the money to support her and the kids in some way. The average cost of child support in 2013, this is like years ago, okay, right, was around $500 a month. His payments may be way higher than this. Who knows, they're double, or I've heard of people even triple that. Keep in mind, money might be a difficult situation. Tip number 9, beware of those expectations. Same thing as comparisons. You got to watch out for your own expectations. If you've got some idea in your head about how your relationship's going to be or how it's going to play out or even your eventual marriage, You got to be able to modify that. Let it be flexible. Your situation is going to be different than everybody else's. And if you have a preconceived notion of how it should be, you're always going to be running into those expectations as, well, being a disappointment. Trust me when I tell you that expectations usually don't win over reality. Tip number 10, you may have to be a little better than the rest. Honestly, in order to handle a situation where you're coming in as a new parent, maybe even with your own kids, you got to step up and shine. Dating a man with kids requires you to have your crap together. You got to be confident, you got to be sharp and on your game, and you got to be able to get real and dig into the dirt when you need to. And skipping forward, I'm going to give you a bonus tip here that's just so important, I got to sneak it in. No BS. Look, if a guy has gotten to this point in his life where he has been married and he's had kids or just had the kids, he's had to face a lot of harsh realities about being a man and a father and being in a relationship. The simple truth is he's not going to want a lot of complication, a lot of drama, or a lot of head games in that relationship. He's going to want things relatively smooth and waveless. And that means that the relationship you have with him is going to be fairly chill, as in you'll probably spend a lot of time just chilling out, having fun, and enjoying the everyday with him. To the degree that you can just be there and support him, okay, and maintain a real relationship, as in a low-maintenance relationship, you're going to probably do really well, quite honestly. But again, it does take a certain amount of self-discipline and having your crap together. This game isn't for the faint of heart. Many women go into it thinking she can just sail in, take over, be that part-time mom, but they don't realize how complicated and trying it can be. Now, that being said, you'll also experience something very rare if you do it right. You can make a difference in a way that their biological mom might not be able to. She might not be able to step up and be as good as you. You have the opportunity to really make a difference to them and their father. It's a pretty unique role. Now, if you're ready to get him to make this kind of commitment to you, whether he's got kids or not, you need to know what men really think about long-term relationships and how they see the whole family thing happening and how he's secretly wishing he had one. Look, whether he has kids or not, men want a long-term committed relationship. That probably sounds a little crazy to you, and I wouldn't blame you for thinking that. However, it is true. Men want committed relationships. But most women don't know this. They also don't know how there's certain triggers inside a man's mind that make him want you, want a relationship, want a family, and will keep him with you. You've probably known plenty of couples that stick together through thick and thin. They don't have some of the issues you may have had with relationships. They somehow seem to do better. What is it they've got that you don't? There's no reason that other people should get what you want and you can't have. There's no reason for it. The only thing you need to get is a little bit of education. When you learn how relationships work from a man's point of view, which is something I can teach you, that's why I do this stuff for women, is I'm a man. I'm on the side that you're curious about. I have the men thoughts. I have all that male stuff going on. I can tell you what makes us avoid relationships the way I did for over 35 years, or I can tell you about those relationships that work, that make you stick with it and have the kids you want, the relationship you want, and the devotion and having him adore you the way you want. If you want that commitment, if you want to know how that commitment works in men, I'll show you. Go on over to datingfire.com/Cupid. That's datingfire.com/Cupid. It's an awesome little video that shows you about the Cupid effect and how it works to make men want a committed relationship. And hey, if you want to get my free ebook along with my free VIP newsletter, you can get that too. Go on over to datingfire.com/free book. That's datingfire.com/free book. Go check it out. I've got a great little ebook. It tells you the real reasons that men run away from relationships. And you can know if he's still interested in you and the relationship. Is he afraid to commit? Find out. I can tell you, there's definite reasons why men walk away from relationships, why they grow distant, why they eventually ghost you, why they do the ridiculous and frustrating things they do. There is a reason. It doesn't just happen for no reason. Go find out. Remember, the education is the most critical component. If you're not learning why this stuff happens, you're going to keep repeating it. You're going to be doomed to have relationships turn out the same way, right? You know what I'm talking about. You get to that 4, 6, or 8 week mark, and inevitably that relationship goes right downhill. Why is that happening? Why can't you get past that time barrier and make these relationships last? I'll show you. Going over to datingfire.com/free book. Hey, and before you run away, make sure you do the big three. Number one, make sure you like and subscribe to the videos. They're awesome. Why wouldn't you? You stuck through here. You take a chance. It's not going to hurt you. I give good stuff on these, and you can always turn it off if you didn't like it later. Turn on notifications to make sure you keep getting the notices when the new videos come out. I do them weekly. And of course, leave me your questions and comments below. I look at those to figure out what to do the next videos on. Hey, this is Cavallo from datingfire.com. It's been good seeing you. Go on to another one of my videos, and I'll be talking again soon. As always, live and love with passion.